We welcome you to today's English Studies class. We remain your facilitators, Mr. Oladile and Mr. Oguntuga. We'll be considering grammar as an aspect of English today, and under grammar, our concern is active and passive voice. Active and passive voice. Our objectives are, by the end of this lesson, students should be able to discuss active and passive voice, identify active and passive sentences, change active voices to passive voice, or passive voice to active voice. Our Bible reference is taken from the book of Acts of the Apostles, chapter 1, verse 2, which says, "Until he was taken up to heaven." Here, you will agree with me that the person that has performed this action is not mentioned. So that is a passive sentence for us. Our content today is divided into three: A, active voice; B, passive voice; C, how to change active voice to passive voice or passive voice to active voice. When do we say a sentence is in its active form? An active voice is a sentence whose verb form shows that the subject is performing or has performed an action. A sentence whose verb form shows that the subject is performing or has performed an action. For instance, Jane plays basketball. We agree with me that Jane is the doer of the action in this sentence. So she is the subject of the sentence. In the second sentence, we have Alan plays baseball. So in the two sentences above, we have the doers performing their different actions and they are in their rightful positions. So when the doer of an action is mentioned first in a sentence, and there is another entity in that sentence receiving the action of the subject, we say the sentence is in its active form. Let's check further examples. Here we have a table. The table has three columns. On the first column from our left have the subject of the sentences in the table. We have they, my sister, Paul, James, and Jack, the Lord. They are all the performers, they are all the subjects, they are all the agents, they are all the doers of the actions of the verb in the middle columns. Therefore, we have the entities or experiencers or the objects that are receiving the actions of the subjects. They are on the right side of the table. So we have the novel, your children, the apple, two bicycles, Jesus. All these sentences are examples of active sentences or active voice. Now, we have they read the novel. My sister teaches your children. Paul ate the apple. James and Jack brought two bicycles. The Lord took up Jesus to heaven. The doers are in their rightful position and they perform some actions which are received by their objects. So in this form, we say we have active sentences. Let's look at passive voice. When do we say a sentence is in its passive form? A passive form or voice is a sentence whose verb form shows that an action has been carried out against the subject or against the agent. So here, the agent or the subject or the doer or the performer of the action does not matter. What matters is the receiver, the experiencer of the action. For instance, we have a crate of eggs is needed. We may choose not to put by heart. And we can say every morning bread is taken. We may choose not to tell who is the one taking bread every morning. Let's check further examples of this. We have the novel was bought by them. The novel, which happened to be the object the other time, is now the subject or is now put in the place of the subject. Your children, who happen to be the receivers of the action the other time under active, they are now the doer or they are under the subject position of the sentence. The apple is eaten by Paul. Two bicycles were bought by James and Jack, and Jesus was taken up to heaven by the Lord. So, under passive voice, the receiver of the action will be mentioned first, and they will come first in the sentence. That is how to identify a passive sentence. So, what are the ways or steps taken when we want to change active sentences to passive sentences? One, the subject must become the object, and the object must become the subject. For instance, Ben played the card. Ben, subject. The card was played by Ben. The card now as subject, Ben as the object. They write letters every week. They, subject. Letter, object. Becomes letters are written by them every week. Letters which happen to be the object before is now the subject or is in the subject position and then becomes the receiver. So certain changes occur when we use pronouns. Pronouns such as I in the active we change to me in the passive. He or she in the active we change to him or her in the passive. They in the active we change to them in the passive. We in the active we change to us in the passive. 2. Preposition by must be added to the passive voice. For instance, we say Ben played the card. That is active. To change that to the passive, we say the card was played by Ben. So that by preposition is very important. The third rule says that verbs must be used according to tense. Verb must be used according to tense. So if you have a present tense in your active, your passive must be in the present form. When you have the past for tense in the active, the passive must be in the past form too. So we have Ben plays the card, present active voice. The card is played by Ben, present passive voice. See, it's only the auxiliary that we change when it comes to giving the passive of the present active or present past active. So we have Ben played the card, and we say the card was played by Ben. So is changes to was. Still on verbs and the tenses, we can say see becomes is as seen and sees is seen. Played was played or were played. Is becomes is been or are being. You can have has with has been and have as with have been. Still on tenses of the verb in active and passive. Ben is playing the card. Active, present continuous. The card is being played by Ben. Present continuous passive. They have played the card. They have played the card. That is active present perfect. The card has been played by them. You should notice something here. Under the active voice, when you have one verb, the passive equivalent will have two verbs. When you have two verbs in the active, the passive equivalent will have three verbs. When you have three verbs in the active, the passive equivalent will be four verbs. But that of 3 to 4 equivalents is rare. So we can also say see becomes as seen, sees becomes is seen. So as said earlier on the slide before now. So the last but not the least of the rules is that past participle of the main verb must be used when we want to form the passive form or passive voice. You never hear is saw or is broke. So you hear or you use is seen or are seen, is broken or are broken. So we have the following examples. Ben writes letters. Letters are written. So writes becomes written. Ben saw the car. Saw becomes seen. The car was seen by Ben. This car was seen by Ben. So write becomes written, sees or see becomes seen, paints or paints becomes painted, breaks or broke becomes broken. That is the end of our today's activities. Here is the first task for us to embark upon. But we have to do it as assignments and to be submitted to my Gmail account. You have to change the following sentences to the passive voice. And when you get to B, change the following sentences to the active voice. Our second task is to download the vocabulary development under grammar on the portal, and we have to attempt the exercises therein. We have to send the completed exercise to my Gmail, as I mentioned earlier, michaeloladile84 at gmail.com. The deadline for both exercises is Saturday, 27th June 2020, not later than 6 p.m. Thank you very much. I so much appreciate your time. I want you to uh, study further in order to master this aspect of grammar. It's an aspect that we all use every day. We use active and passive sentences on daily basis in our activities. So you will do well by studying further. God bless all of you. Here comes the end of today's activities. Have a nice weekend. Thank you very much. Bye.